My parents took me to court for buying a house. Yes, my own parents, and yes, my own house. The day it happened, I was sitting on the floor of my new living room, surrounded by half-opened boxes and the hollow excitement of moving in alone. I should have been happy. I should have been celebrating the keys I spent 6 years saving for. Instead, I stared at legal documents with my name printed like I was a criminal. When I demanded an explanation, my father didn't hesitate. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "That house belongs to your sister." That wasn't the part that broke me. What came after did. My name is Wiley Eloise, I'm 29 years old, and for most of my adult life, I convinced myself the easiest way to keep peace in my family was simple. Stay quiet, work hard, and never ask for more than what I earned with my own hands. I grew up in a house where my father, Malcolm, spoke like every opinion he had was a law, and my mother, Rosalind, softened his rules with guilt. My younger sister, Celeste, never felt the weight of any of it. She drifted through life protected, praised, excused. She didn't walk, she floated. And we were all expected to clear the air in front of her so she never had to breathe discomfort. I learned young that fairness wasn't something my family knew how to practice. Expectation was the only language they spoke. Even then, I tried to build something of myself. I focused on my engineering career. I worked nights, slept with my laptop still glowing beside me, hair pulled back, eyes burning, telling myself that discipline would give me the freedom my childhood never did. For 6 years, I saved. No vacations. No impulse spending. Lunches from home. Every bonus went straight into savings. Every promotion felt like buying back a little piece of the life I wanted. Until finally, I had enough. Enough to buy something real. Something mine. The night I told my family I could finally afford a down payment, Rosalind acted like the announcement was hers to unwrap. She clapped her hands and lit candles on the table like it was a holiday she invented. "Oh sweetheart, we're so proud of you," she said, smiling too widely. Malcolm nodded once in approval. "A smart investment, if you do it right." Their pride was thin. A layer of frosting with nothing underneath. Then Celeste leaned back in her chair, stirring her iced tea with the same dramatics she used for everything. "Must be nice having that engineering salary," she said. "Some of us are still paying off grad school." Her tone wasn't teasing. It never was. I held my smile. "You're doing well at your firm. You'll get there." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The air tightened around her resentment like it always did when anything good happened to me. It didn't matter how hard I worked for something. In her mind, attention was a currency she owned by birthright. Still, I kept going. I toured houses on weekends. I drove through quiet neighborhoods after work, imagining a life where no one could rewrite my choices. And then I found it. A modest 2-story home tucked on a calm street just outside the city. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't huge. But it was mine. I felt that the moment I stepped inside. Signing the paperwork felt like breathing after being underwater for years. What I didn't know was that the home I earned with 6 years of sacrifice would become the spark that burned every belief I still had about my family. 3 days after closing, I was unpacking, sweaty, tired, holding a screwdriver, when my phone buzzed non-stop. I ignored it at first. But then Mara, my closest friend, texted, "Wiley, you need to see this. Now." She sent a screenshot. Celeste's social media post. Public. Dramatic. Dripping in self-pity. "When your sister uses the money grandma meant for your first home, and buys one for herself instead." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Strangers calling me greedy, selfish, unbelievable. My throat closed. She was accusing me of stealing inheritance money that didn't exist. Money no one ever promised her. Money I never touched. Before I could even react, my phone rang again. "Dad." Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice was flat, official. "Wiley, we need to discuss the situation with the house." My chest tightened. "What situation?" From behind him, my mother's voice floated in. "You know what this is about." "No," I said, "I don't." Malcolm exhaled sharply. "You knew the funds for Celeste's first home were meant for her. You used them for yourself. That house belongs to her." My stomach twisted so hard I almost doubled over. "What are you talking about? I bought this house with my savings." I can show everything. Silence. Then Malcolm delivered the line that split my world in half, "We'll be filing in court tomorrow." I sank onto the nearest stair, hands shaking. "You're taking me to court?" Rosalind added, soft but poisonous. "We just want to make things right for your sister. You can buy another house." Like 6 years of sacrifice were something I could redo on a lunch break. The call ended without a goodbye. I sat in the dim hallway of my new home, betrayal echoing through every empty room. They weren't mistaken. They weren't confused. They were making a choice. And they chose against me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at Mara's kitchen counter with a mug of cold tea, staring at the steamless surface like it might explain how my own parents could weaponize my success against me. The room around me hummed with the little sounds of her apartment, but everything inside me felt suspended, like I was caught between disbelief and the quiet beginning of anger. Mara watched me carefully, elbows on the counter, her voice low. "You're not crazy. They're trying to take your house." The words didn't soften anything. They made it sharper. Behind her, Ashton stepped into the doorway. I hadn't even realized he'd come with her. He folded his arms, his expression grim. "Wiley," he said, "you need to prepare yourself. They're not bluffing. Your family is getting ready to start a legal war." Legal war. Against their own daughter. My throat tightened. I just nodded because I didn't trust my voice. The next morning, Ashton returned with a folder tucked under his arm, crisp and heavy like the beginning of something irreversible. "I made some calls," he said, sliding the folder toward me. "You need someone who specializes in inheritance disputes and property claims." "Inheritance?" I whispered. "There is no inheritance issue." He gave a dry, humorless smile. "There wasn't. Your parents are trying to create one." My stomach turned. He tapped the folder. "Vivian Hale. She's the best I've ever worked with." Vivian met us that afternoon in her office overlooking the city. The space felt almost unreal, glass walls, soft lighting, shelves lined with books and subtle order. She looked like someone who didn't just argue cases. She dismantled them. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything. The post. The accusations. My parents' threat. Celeste trying to spin a narrative that never existed. When I finished, Vivian folded her hands. "This claim sounds fabricated," she said. "But weak cases can still cause damage if handled incorrectly. We need documentation." "I have every payment record," I said. "Every transfer. Every savings log." "Good." She nodded. "Now we need witnesses. Who knew the inheritance was evenly split?" My breath steadied. "My Uncle Raymond. My Aunt Miriam. Contact them immediately. We need their statements." I called Raymond first. He answered on the second ring, voice steady as always. "Wiley, sweetheart. I heard something was going on." When I told him, his response was instant. "Your grandmother would be furious. The will was split evenly. No promises like the ones your parents are claiming. I'll sign whatever you need." I swallowed, heart tight. "Thank you, Uncle Ray." Then I called Aunt Miriam. Her voice was quieter, heavier. "I always feared this could happen," she said. "Your father asked your grandparents to change the will years ago. He wanted more given to Celeste. They refused. Your father never accepted that." She exhaled softly. "If you need my testimony, I'll be there." Piece by piece, everything clicked. This wasn't sudden. It wasn't about a misunderstanding. It wasn't about me stealing anything. It was about years of unspoken promises Malcolm and Rosalind had made to Celeste. Promises built out of favoritism, entitlement, fantasy. Promises they expected reality to obey. And I was the obstacle in their way. The worst moment came 2 nights later. Mara and I drove to my house so I could grab a few things, and the second we pulled up, she grabbed my arm. "Wiley, someone's on the porch." My heart froze. Celeste. She was jiggling the door handle. Trying to force a key inside. A key I never gave her. "What are you doing?" I shouted. She spun around, startled, but her shock dissolved in seconds into something uglier. "I just wanted to look inside," she yelled. "It's going to be my house anyway, so why do you care?" That moment fractured something inside me so deeply, I felt it echo. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. Vivian didn't soften her reaction when I told her. This is attempted unauthorized entry. And it proves entitlement. We will use this. The fear I'd been drowning in shifted, quietly, into something sharper. Something steadier. Something like resolve. My parents wanted a legal war. Fine. They would get one. And this time, I wasn't walking in as the quiet daughter who let things slide. This time, I was walking in with the truth. And the truth was heavier than any story they could invent. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old paper, the kind of sterile scent that made every step echo a little too loudly. As I walked beside Vivian, my palms felt cold, but my heartbeat was sharp and steady. I wasn't afraid of losing the house anymore. I was afraid of confirming what I already suspected. That the people who raised me weren't the people I thought they were. When we entered the courtroom, my entire family was already seated. Malcolm straightened his shoulders the moment he saw me, as if he had been waiting for this moment to perform strength. Rosalind looked away quickly, like eye contact might break the performance. Celeste sat between them, jaw tight, eyes bright with entitlement, like she was the victim of a crime I hadn't committed. Vivian touched my arm gently. Stay steady. Remember, we're here for facts, not feelings. The judge entered, Judge Evelyn Carter. A woman whose presence made the room go silent. She looked like she could slice through excuses with a single blink. Let's begin, she said. The plaintiff's lawyer, a man named Bernard Langford, stood and buttoned his jacket. Your Honor, he began, this case concerns a verbal family agreement regarding inheritance distribution, an agreement that Miss Wiley violated when she purchased a property using funds intended for her sister, Celeste. Verbal agreement. No documentation. No witness. No reality. My stomach twisted. Bernard continued, the house Miss Wiley acquired was meant for Celeste per long-standing discussions within the family. Long-standing discussions that happened entirely in their heads. Vivian didn't move. Didn't blink. She was waiting. When Bernard finally finished, she rose with calm precision. Your Honor, the plaintiff's claim of verbal agreement with no witnesses, no documentation, and no mention in the legally executed will of the deceased grandparents. Meanwhile, the defendant has provided detailed payment records showing the home was purchased entirely through 6 years of earned income. Judge Carter nodded. Proceed. That was the signal. Bernard called Malcolm to the stand first. My father took his place like a man walking toward a spotlight he'd been waiting for. My wife and I always intended for Celeste to have help with her first home, he said. Wiley knew this. Vivian wrote nothing down. She didn't entertain lies. Then Rosalind testified. We aren't trying to hurt Wiley, she said softly. We just want what was promised to Celeste. Promised, by who? A promise without a promiser, a document, or a truth was just a convenient fantasy. Then Celeste took the stand. She smoothed her skirt, exhaled shakily, and said, I've been saving for years, but I don't make as much as Wiley. She knew the house was supposed to be mine. Her voice cracked perfectly on cue. A performance she'd perfected since childhood. When Bernard finished his parade of delusion, Vivian stood like a blade. Your Honor, we would like to call our first witness, Raymond Hale. My uncle entered the courtroom with calm dignity, sat down, and spoke clearly. The will was split evenly. No special promises. I was in the room when it was read. Bernard tried to shake him. He failed. Next was Aunt Miriam. Her voice was tired but strong. Malcolm asked the grandparents to change the will to give more to Celeste. They refused. They believed in fairness. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crack the floor. Then Vivian called me. Sitting at the witness stand, the microphone felt too close. Too loud. But I spoke anyway. I saved for 6 years. Every dollar used to buy that house came from my own income. Vivian presented the documents, neatly organized, labeled, irrefutable. Judge Carter reviewed them slowly, carefully. Noted, she said. Then Vivian delivered the final strike. Your Honor, we have one more matter to address. 2 nights before mediation, Celeste attempted to enter the defendant's property using a key that did not belong to her. A neighbor recorded the attempt and called the police. We have the report here. Celeste's head snapped up. I wasn't breaking in. I just wanted to look. Vivian didn't even acknowledge her. This demonstrates the plaintiffs believed they were entitled to the property regardless of legal ownership. She paused. That belief is the core of this case. Bernard sputtered. That has nothing to do with, it has everything to do with entitlement, Vivian said. Judge Carter raised her hand. Enough. The entire courtroom fell silent. She looked at the evidence one last time, then set the papers aside. I have reviewed all material. The will was equal. There is no evidence of any special allocation for Celeste. The defendant purchased the home using her own earnings. She paused. The air tightened. As for the attempted entry, that escalation is deeply troubling. Celeste paled. Judge Carter lifted the gavel. The case is dismissed with prejudice. The plaintiffs are barred from refiling. The gavel struck sharply. A sound like a door slamming shut on an entire chapter of my life. I exhaled, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Rosalind covered her mouth, stunned. Malcolm's jaw tightened with anger, with disbelief, with humiliation. Celeste collapsed into loud, messy tears. When we stepped into the hallway, Malcolm stormed after us. This isn't over, he barked. We're still family. I turned to him fully for the first time. Family doesn't take each other to court over lies, I said quietly. You made this choice. Rosalind reached for my hand. I stepped back. You already fought, I said. And you lost. Celeste sniffled behind them, whispering, I thought it was supposed to be mine. I looked at her softly, but without bending. It never was. You wanted the fantasy. Not the truth. Vivian placed a hand on my shoulder. We're done here. And we were. I didn't feel triumphant walking out of that courthouse. I felt whole. I felt steady. I felt free. By the time I got home, the sun was sinking behind the rooftops, casting a soft orange glow over the street. For the first time in months, the sight of my own front door didn't make my stomach twist. It felt different now, like the house could finally breathe again, because I finally could, too. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The quiet wrapped itself around me gently, not like emptiness, but like a blanket. No tension, no dread, no fear that someone was waiting to take something from me. The air felt lighter. Mine. Mara showed up first, pushing the door open with takeout in one hand and victory shining in her eyes. You did it, she said, pulling me into a hug that almost knocked the wind out of me. You actually stood up to all of them. Ashton followed her in, holding a bottle of sparkling cider like it was a trophy. Not many people walk into a courtroom against their entire family and walk out standing taller, he said. You didn't just win the case. You won the truth. Vivian arrived last. Calm, composed, but smiling in a way I hadn't seen from her before. Justice doesn't fix everything, she said softly as she stepped inside. But it gives you something precious, room to breathe. For the first time, I felt that room opening inside me. We sat around my half-furnished living room sharing food, telling stories, filling the house with laughter that wasn't forced or filtered or conditional. When Raymond called, his voice was proud in a steady way. Your grandparents believed in fairness, he said. They'd be proud of you. Aunt Miriam called next. I always knew Celeste expected too much, she whispered. I'm relieved the truth finally stood on its own. Piece by piece, the weight I'd carried for so many years began slipping off me. Later that night, after everyone left, I walked through each room slowly, touching the edges of the walls, the window frames, the kitchen counters. Everything felt different, solid, grounded. Not just a purchase. Not just an address. A home. My home. Fully, unquestionably mine. I opened the windows and let the cool night air drift in. The breeze carried a softness I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. I stood in the doorway a long time, letting everything settle. Family isn't defined by blood. I had learned that the hardest way. It isn't defined by who shares your last name, or who raised you, or who claims to know what's best for you while tearing you apart. Family is the people who show up when everything breaks. The ones who stand beside you when you have nothing left to prove. The ones who don't rewrite your story but help you reclaim it. I didn't win just a court case. I won my boundaries back. My voice. My life. If you've ever had to fight for what's yours, if you've ever stood alone against the people who should have protected you, hear me clearly. You're not alone anymore. Tell me where you're listening from. Subscribe for more stories like this. And stay with me, because the next one might be the one you needed to hear today.